What up, it's your boy Dr. back at it again for another video, and today we're here with To Your Eternity To Your Eternity Season 2, Episode 5. Last episode was really good actually. Some interesting questions were asked, specifically from Bonchian, and we also got some really interesting interactions with Fushi, Kahaku. I always forget his name and I don't understand why. Fushi, Kahaku, Bonchian, the little short chubby kid, forget his name, something real simple. It was just a really interesting episode, and brought up some really interesting talking points, which led to a really fun discussion for me, at least. We learned that Bonchian is actually a medium, and he seems to be the perfect match for Fushi, at least when it comes to like being someone who can see the ghosts and see the spirits and all this other stuff, and Fushi being someone something of the opposite caliber in a lot of ways. So we're gonna hop straight into it. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, all the other stuff. If you're just a lurker, I appreciate you too. If you have any requests, whether it be more To Your Eternity or something totally different, the best place to send that in. It's always my social media links going to be in the description below. We also have a Jesus fucking Christ, I was about to say Discord, but we have Patreon if you want these episodes early, and the full reaction to these episodes, and we have a Discord if you want to talk more To Your Eternity. Jesus Christ, my brain is fried today. So with all that being said, let's get our headphones, make sure they're on, them bitches is on, and let's just get into it. It really sucks that I can't watch this. I say this what feels like every episode now since season 2, but I really wish I could watch this like OP, even though someone said that I could watch like the first 45 seconds. That's still like iffy for me because I don't know what exactly is on there, and I don't know what will actually be a spoiler and what won't. Fushi is a really good asset to have in battle, even with like not just, he has some beautiful legs. What the fuck? He is so that man's not a chair. He probably likes it. Honored to be sat on by the prince. Jesus. Right, he doesn't know like tact in this situation. Oh. Oh. Damn. Oh. Love him. There's something important there, yeah. Yeah, you are so in love. Jesus Christ, dude. It's so obvious. I am really interested in how Kohaku takes this, you know. I just wonder how Kohaku's gonna take all this. He's so good with logistics. You know, he's so good for logistics, it's crazy. Okay, cool. Now he can replicate that. Yeah. Let's go, horny man. He's such a good guy. Oh, what a great guy. Oh shit. He can, what the fuck? Get the fuck out of here. It's real shit going on. Oh! Oh, good job. The fuck kind of shape did they take this time? There you go. You gotta fight him underground. His own. The fuck is that? Oh, nice. Oh, he used. I see. He used Google to blow it up. Jesus. Oh, he cares about his men. That's real shit. That's real shit. That's really good that he cares about his men that much. Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Magnificent. But the next week's punchy and Jesus. Bro, what the fuck? They love that guy. I understand though. He's great. Yeah, he's been just going around doing great things for people. That's crazy. Hostility? Oh, she's dying. Oh, fuck. But with like the way that Fushi's power work? Oh, man. Free to do all the things they wanted to do. Hmm. Oh, of course he does. Oh, man. Well, honestly, what I was gonna say is that the only as the way that Fushi's power works, the only time that he'd be able to even do anything is when she died, or after she died, I should say. Oh my God! It's creating a husk. Wait. Wait, 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 wait. Hmm. Oh, it's happening! Oh my God! Oh. You can do it. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, all the other people. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, dude, this is. Prince came back to life and showed up in front of you. Yep, I knew it. If they all come back. Yep, if they all come back, he's definitely not staying with you. Man, it's crazy that, well, it's honorable for you to even, like, be able to see that in yourself. Whoa. What did you expect? Jesus. I'll kill you. Love between two. You don't? She hasn't known. I was about to bring this up last episode. Whenever she was like, or whenever he was like, she doesn't like she. You don't know that yet. Man, that's a coveted. You knew each other's shadows, but they. It's kind of hard. Homework. Man. You're a girl? What? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh my god. Mm-hmm. And see, this is a lot. This is pretty much the same as Bon not telling Fushi that he can bring people back to life. Hmm? Listen, Fushi. What's wrong with being in love with a doll? Oh. There are technically some people in this world like that. As a woman. But, yeah. Yep. It's the same thing. Fuck. He's gonna give it to the Ghost of March. Oh, that would have been so sweet if he gave it to the Ghost of March. That would have been so sweet. Oh, he did! He's the best! He's the best! He's the best! Bitch, what? That's the end of the episode? What? No, that episode was like 2 minutes. I swear to God that episode was 2 minutes. I swear to God that episode was like 2 minutes. I don't care what anybody says. That episode was 2 fucking minutes. That shit was 2 fucking minutes long. There is no way that the episode was any longer than like 2 to 5 minutes. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? Because like that episode just, it fucking flew. Okay. Oh man. Okay. Very interesting. Very, very interesting things happening here. There is honestly just one integral thing that I really want to talk about in this episode. But we will I'm gonna try to go at it, you know, moment by moment through the episode. We start off with, you know, the beginning of our little expedition, in which, as I said in the episode, Fushi is really he is really good. He is really good with logistics. Combat, he's okay, and throughout the years and the decades and the centuries, he's gotten even better. But one thing that Fushi has always been good at, and he is simply just getting better at, um, is logistics. Your men will never, your archers will never run out of arrows. Your knights will never run out of swords. You know, your army will never run out of food as long as you have Fushi on your side. And it brings me back to what Boozman said in season 1, which is food. If nations, this is not, this is not word for word what he said, but basically what he was saying is that if nations found out about Fushi, there would be legitimate battles and wars like fought over him, because in all reality Fushi is a huge asset for pretty much anybody that possesses him. Now the thing is about that is that Fushi is not a possession, and I think we touched on that a bunch in this episode, which is why I say there's pretty much one singular thing that I want to talk about, because it for this episode specifically, that seemed to be the overall theme for it. So as I was saying, Fushi is not a possession. That is the flaw in that way of thinking. And since Fushi is not a possession, he's not something for other people to own, whether it is for the betterment of their nation or not. What we see here, and the first thing that we see in this episode that kind of shows you the foreshadowing of Boozman, is Bon using Toto, who we now know is what's her actual name? Iris, I think, is her actual name. Using Iris as a chair. Now, a chair is a possession. A chair is a thing. It is a item. It's not something that you can, you get the point, right? You get the point. And for Bonchian to be using Iris as a chair, it kind of, not only does it demean Iris's love for Bon, but it also kind of it absolutely demeans Iris as a person. And since Iris is demoted from a person to a chair, he or she, now that I know, her love itself, in a way, can be seen as thwarted or made not as important. That's the type of shit that's the type of shit that hurts, right? But the interesting thing here is that Iris doesn't care, and after Fushi calls Bon out on that, and he's like, Iris isn't a chair, she's a person, and she's in, well, at the moment he's in love with you, and you can't be treating him like that. Somebody that loves you can't be treating him like that. But Iris says something very interesting, right? Because in a lot of ways, I was absolutely agreeing with Fushi, and I do agree with Fushi. Iris shouldn't be used as a chair. Iris isn't a possession. Iris is a person, and Iris deserves the same respect that a person should get, right? But Iris is okay with it, and it's not so much the thing is not so much of Iris being okay with it. It's the thing of Iris is simply happy to be of use. Iris is simply happy to be helpful to Bon, right? And because Iris is simply just happy to be helpful to Bon, that is where she finds her joy. That is her nirvana. That is her heaven, her peace, right? If that's being a chair, then okay, that it's cool, right? As fucked up as it seems for her to be used as a chair, if she wants to be a chair, she can be a chair, right? And the reason why I immediately kind of like had to think a little bit more critically of what was going on here after Iris like went talked about, you know, how she was okay with being a chair to bone and stuff like that, is because it reminded me of Pioran, who was in the same boat as Iris in a way, right? It was a little different, but it was pretty much the same boat as Iris, where Pioran was simply wanted to be useful to Fushi, while Fushi didn't see Pioran as a tool, didn't see Pioran as a possession. Pioran was completely okay with simply being a tool, a possession for Fushi to use. In a lot of ways, this is the parallel that the show may have been setting up when we got to that part of the episode, right? Let me put it like this, right? In I swear I feel like people are tired of me like saying, oh, this is like this one show or whatever that I watched. But let me put it like this, right? In Silent Hill, one of my favorite moments in Silent Hill, or one of my favorite excerpts in Silent Hill, is a note from a doctor in like a mental ward where he's taking care of some patient. If anybody's played Silent Hill, I think it was Silent Hill 2. If anybody's played it and remembers where this is from, or what character this was, point being, the doctor was taking care of some mental patient. He is very far gone, but he is very happy in the bliss of being not mentally well, right? And if I'm correct, if I'm remembering correctly, his problem was that he was like very madly in love with somebody who absolutely did not love them. Now, none of that itself matters, but it's what the doctor says in his report that I'm trying to get at. Is that his report basically said, if the man is happy in his insanity, who am I to take him out of that, right? Because that's where he's happiest. It does that make me, am I in the wrong now because I cured him of that insanity that made him so happy? Because before he wasn't. And if curing him of this insanity also cures him of his happiness, is it wrong for me to help him, right? So this situation here, it kind of reminds me of that, where it doesn't remind me of this situation because like, oh, I'm saying like, oh, Toto or Iris, whatever you want to call her, is crazy, or anybody here is crazy. What I'm saying is that if where Iris is happiest is being a chair, simply because we don't understand it, simply because I don't want to be anybody's chair, sure, right? Like, I'm pretty sure many of people watching this video would not like to be somebody's chair. But in this situation, at least in other situations, I'm sure in just real life, that is where she is happiest. And that's fine. If that's where she's happy, that's what she wants to do, then that's fine. And it's not so much of just her being a chair. It's her being happy to be of service. Now, take all this with a grain of salt, because obviously nobody should strive to be somebody's chair, obviously, right? Like, let's use our heads a little bit while we're talking, while we're discussing this anime. Nobody should strive to be somebody's chair. But the point of the idea that the show is trying to get across is not to be somebody's chair, but if somebody is happy helping however they can, then that is where their peace is, and that probably should not be disturbed, right? Now, Here's where it gets a little bit more complicated, right? Is now that we're in the realm of talking about the theme of treating people like possessions and stuff like that, we can kind of get into what more was going on because the themes got deeper, which is now Fushi has effectively brought somebody back to life, which is something that has always been in the back of my head for me, right? Because I feel like in season one, the show was very subtle with it. Like at first I was like, "Eh, what the fuck?" Right? And then as the show went on, more and more more and more clues to what was going on kind of, you know, showed itself, revealed itself, however you want to say it, right? And now that the show is finally just like laying it all on the table, like yes, Fushi can technically bring people back to life, which I would talk more about. But we've talked to theorize over it so much that, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But now that the show has just kind of laid it out on the table, Fushi has become more of an asset than anybody would have expected him to be, right? Which, you know, him being an asset once again turns back to that theme of somebody being a possession rather than just being a person, right? So now that he's learned how to do this, which I'm guessing it works exactly the way that I figured it would work, is that he can make husks, but since the spirits roam around, they can also just jump into that husk and effectively be resurrected. Now, as this is where we get back into the main theme of this episode, is that now that it's been revealed that Fushi can bring people back to life, we see how everybody reacts to this information. First of all, Bonchin wants to keep this a secret, right? Obviously, Bonchin wants to keep this a secret because he knows that if he can bring people back to life, the first people that he's going to attempt to bring back to life is his friends, March, Gugu, Perona, Pioran, fucking Reen, whoever, Tanari, it doesn't matter. He's going to try to bring them all back. Now, problem being is that since he would bring them all back, he would immediately go off and have a great time with them instead of anybody else. He'll have all his friends back. He'll know that he can bring them back if he needs to. He's going to go out and live his life in bliss with his friends in an eternal loop of them just never dying, right? And that's not what they want, right? And I say they because it's not just Bonchin, right? As Bonchin very, very respectably called out, he is being extremely, extremely selfish, but he's not the only one that's being selfish. It's the creator as well. And the creator didn't tell Fushi that he could do this either, because of that same reason. If Fushi learned that he could just bring people back to life, he would go off and just live life with his friends, never dying, right? Whereas the creator doesn't need that. He doesn't want that, at least. The creator wants Fushi to go out and basically do his bidding, which is whatever the fuck he want, preserving life and stuff, all that other stuff, right? And we'll have plenty of time to talk about that in other episodes. But the point is that the creator wants Fushi to go out and do what he set him out to do, right? Which is not go off on an island and hang out with your friends for eternity, right? What he wants is for Fushi to complete his bidding, whereas Bon wants Fushi to stay with him, right? So everybody has a reason to keep Fushi near and keep Fushi in line. This is the reason why the creator in the last episode was like, oh, I'll give you your freedom back, or I'll give you your freedom, right? Because he's not free right now. And I think this episode did a very good job of subtly explaining that to the viewer here. Is that Fushi is kind of locked into everybody wanting to use him for something, right? Bonshin just wants him around so he won't tell him. And the creator also wants him to complete his mission so he won't tell him. Where Fushi is now being used as a tool, he is being used as a possession. There is very little love. Well, there's very little love in that, right? But once again, it's not just them. You also have Kahaku, who is dealing with his own type of thing here, right? I always want to call him Kohaku. Kahaku has something a little bit interesting going on, and interesting in not in like a deep philosophical way, but interesting in like I don't think that's how that works. Because in I think it was the last episode, one thing that stood out to me is Kahaku was addressing Fushi as her. She, as more feminine pronouns, right? Whereas Fushi as far as we know, sees himself as a guy. Fushi technically is like asexual. Fushi is pretty much genderless, but Fushi kind of made up his mind. He's like, yeah, I kind of more or less feel like I'm a guy. I spent more time as a guy. Yeah, I like being a guy. I think I'm a guy, right? Whereas Kahaku is like, no, you're a girl. And he is trying his damnedest to preserve Fushi's femininity. Now, why this is interesting is because Kahaku is using Fushi in the same way that the creator in Bonshin is using Fushi, but different. Mostly because he desperately wants Fushi to be a girl. Now, I talked about how it was respectable for Kahaku to be okay with Fushi in a way, like, I guess you could say rejecting him in that last episode where he's just like, nah, I'm a guy, I don't really love anybody, it's just not for me, blah blah. And that kind of like put Kahaku down the dumps, but it seemed like he took it okay, right? However, I was waiting for that admiration, that love for Fushi to rear his head again, and it definitely did in Kahaku, right? So it's interesting that even Kahaku is using Fushi in a way that makes him his possession to like mold, like, you are a girl now, and because that's what I need from you, right? So it's sad that it's at this point where where everybody is kind of using Fushi, but that's, I think with what this episode is trying to tell us is that that's kind of what people do, right? Even the way that Kahaku is like trying to manipulate Fushi, and Bon is trying to manipulate Fushi. and the creators trying to manipulate Fushi is all kind of like given a mirror to look at itself when Iris kind of reveals herself as a woman, which is one of the most interesting parts of this episode. So Iris reveals herself as a woman, and the reason why, or the first question, and probably the most important question that is asked of her is, why didn't you just tell him that you're a girl? Like, why not tell him? Obviously, or not, maybe not obviously, but as far as you know, he doesn't seem to like guys, or as he said, you're just not his type. So maybe it's that. Why wouldn't you try something else and just say, hey, by the way, I'm actually a girl? The reason is very simple. Where Iris is at right now is she is happy with, and she doesn't want to risk ruining that by revealing her gender. And everybody else, I was about to say Bonchin, but everybody else is doing the same thing. They don't want to change the the circumstances, because at the moment it's either working for them, or they want to keep the circumstances on this track, i.e. Fushi, so they can eventually work for them, or eventually they want him for himself. They want to keep him, or keep Fushi under lock and key, and for lack of a better term. So it's really interesting that they brought in Iris here, or at least they revealed Iris here, because it puts a mirror up to how everybody else is using Fushi, or not, or wanting to use Fushi. So really smart writing this episode. Like, the show itself has some really good writing, but this episode specifically had some really smart writing, the way that they used Iris with Fushi, and how that translated into the creator and everybody else. It's just really interesting stuff. But outside of all that, another thing I really want to talk about is Bonchin himself, right? A very honorable mention is the kind of person that Bon is, which while he as a king is not the greatest. Like, he as a king is not the greatest. But Bon is still the MVP for this episode, because of what I said at the beginning of the discussion, is that Bon recognized he was being selfish, and that's what led him to also recognize that the creator was being selfish. Now, here's the interesting part of that. Here's what's interesting about that, is that nobody should like, the creator is an entity that is the entity that created Fushi. Nobody should be able to understand that guy. But Bonchin is. And why is that? It's because of Bon's ability to talk to spirits and the living, right? And as we talked about in the last discussion, that makes him a little bit more understanding, or a little bit wiser than most, because he can speak to both spirits and living, and the living and the dead. It makes him a little bit more appreciative of people, and we see this in the beginning of this episode with his men, where one of them goes down in the rubble and all the other stuff, and he immediately, like, looks around. James or whatever his name was, like, oh no, I think his name was like Thomas or something. It's like, oh, Thomas, he's not here, and he's got to go find Thomas under the rubble, right? Which in itself is valiant that he would even care about Thomas, right? But what's even more impressive is that he knew that Thomas was gone. That's what's really impressive about this, is that he knew that Thomas was gone. Everybody had, at least everybody in his army is uniformed. Like, that's one thing that like we have to remember. Now, granted, there might be some like telltale signs, like some people may be taller, shorter, heavier, skinnier, whatever, but everybody's uniformed. And I'm going to guess that everybody has a fairly similar build to each other because of the regiment that they may go through when it comes to training and stuff like that. So the fact that he is able to immediately go, oh shit, Thomas isn't here, let's go find Thomas, and when they find Thomas, be genuinely like relieved that he's okay, is really really impressive for Bone as a person. Just seeing how much he cares about people and stuff like that it's nice to see that he's genuinely a good person. But what this also means is that Bone's understanding for everybody is heightened, right? Which is why I say nobody should be able to understand the creator and like what he's trying to do, but Bone is the only one that has. Even Fushi is like in the dark about it, but Bone's like, oh, you're not telling him, because then he would go off and have fun with his friends and he wouldn't do what you wanted to do, right? And the only reason he could even tell that is because he was also, he's also doing the same thing. But it's just interesting to see how good of a commander and a person Bone is, simply because he is able to take in both sides of the living and the dead, and gives him a different perspective on life that makes him that good of a person. So it's just really good writing. It's really good writing for him. The resurrection scene for I think her name's Anna was really good. Really enjoyed the having him like try to help Anna but realize that he can't, or at least think that he can't. And also just him doing good throughout the places that he goes with, like creating the prosthetics and stuff like that. All that is just really good stuff. But this was a fantastic episode. I mean, it flew by for me, at least it felt like. I think we pretty much talked about everything. Once again, the resurrection was really cool. The thing I should probably bring this up. I actually talk about the resurrection thing right now. As much as I was like theorizing about the resurrection coming up, the one thing that I'm pretty sure I've talked about before is that if he can resurrect people, that's gonna be a problem. What I didn't expect, and this is really smart for the show to do this, because that was going to be my main thing whenever we were theorizing about what the fuck was going on with Fushi. I was like, he seems like he's looking at like he's in a way convening with the spirits and stuff like that, and if he's able to eventually pull this off, the problem was going to be that now nothing would matter if he then knew that he could resurrect people. And that was me looking at this show from a meta perspective. If he knows that he can resurrect people, then nothing else matters. Therefore, he's going to go off and live his life somewhere else, right? But the smart thing about this show is that they took the worry that me as the viewer had, and they imbued it to the characters around Fushi, because they also had ulterior motives, whereas my ulterior motive as the viewer was to continue to get more quality episodes, you know, because, you know, the stakes were high. Now they imbued that worry, that want for Fushi to not know what he can do because that it would ruin everything. They imbued it to other characters. So those characters could do exactly what I want to do, which is not tell Fushi that he can revive people, because then it would it would, I think what I said before is that it would write the manga in a corner. It's just interesting that the manga basically flipped it on its head and said, okay, that makes sense. Now everybody else is going to have that same fear. So it makes it to where it makes sense for Fushi not to know and for everybody not to tell him, because everybody's being selfish the same way that me as a viewer was being selfish back then. Would it be better for Fushi to be able to resurrect everybody and then go live happily ever after with them? Yeah, that would be great for him. Would it technically be freedom? Who knows? That's a discussion for another day. Would it be good for him? Who knows? That's a discussion for another day. All the other stuff, right? But I knew that it would be detrimental it could be detrimental if he actually was able to do it. Smart for the manga to write that into the story. That's just really smart. Really smart storytelling. Especially when you have a character that can bring people back to life. Just really smart shit. So all of this this entire episode was great. I'm sure there's more that I could talk about and more that I probably should talk about, but dear God, this was a good one. This was definitely a good one. Also the story actually sounded pretty good, or pretty interesting. I liked that story. I wonder if it'll have some bearing on what happens later in the show, or if it'll have anything to do with the show, and maybe it's just like a one-off thing. But they did a great job with the characters, did a great job with the dialogue, and I think the dialogue was what really shined in this episode. Just a great job all around, especially if you could make me feel like the episode was like 2 minutes long, which it absolutely did, because dear God, I swore that I hadn't watched, like, I don't know, it just didn't feel like 22 minutes. It didn't at all. But it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Really excited for Fushi to start learning more about like very complicated feelings such as love, and starting off with a doll is good. I like that how real this episode's dialogue was, with all of the themes of like loving somebody to a possession and all this other stuff, and also having Fushi say that, oh, I really love this doll, and Bonshin saying like, well, I'm sure there's people out there that do love dolls, and could, fall in love with a doll. You don't really want to, do that, because then some people, may, and it, once again, it kind of goes back into that theme of, if this is where this man is happy, who am I to take him out of the bliss of his own insanity? So I don't know, man. This episode is really this is a sleeper episode. Now I think about it. This is a sleeper episode, because like nothing crazy happened to where it's like yeah, Fushi learned that he can resurrect people. That's crazy. But when you have an episode that's so good, that the main character learning that he can resurrect people is the least crazy thing or the least interesting thing in the episode, though it is interesting, it's just the least interesting thing. That's how you know you wrote a really good episode, and possibly a really fucking good story. So far, this story has been great, and that's a plus. So yeah, really great stuff. Really enjoyed it. Went by way too fast, if you ask me. And hopefully, Fushi actually, maybe it's not so much Fushi. Hopefully, these people learn the idea of letting Fushi go because you love him, right? I know that it's a very cliche thing to say, but if you do love something, you're absolutely willing to let it go. And that's something that me personally, at least, I subscribe to in life, is that if you love something, and if you truly love something, you're okay with letting it go. That doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, because it hurts like hell, but you're okay with letting it go because you want nothing but happiness for that thing or person. Which is why in the last episode I was so impressed with Kahaku when he was like, oh, okay, well, I hope you find somebody that loves you, because that one, that's very mature, but also it would show that he truly does love Fushi more than any of his descendants did, right? Because he would have been the only one to like truly just say, okay, well, it's not gonna be with me, so you can go off and, you know, live your life. Though I could probably say, if I want to play devil's advocate with myself, every other descendant also did that. So it could be said that, yeah, the descendants of Hayase actually like truly love Fushi, if they were all willing to let him go, though it was simply so their offspring can get with. So it's a little bit more complicated, but yes, if you love something, then you are able to let it go. And whoever is able to learn that in this show, when it comes to Fushi, is probably going to be the one that is the best for him. So really interesting stuff. Really great episode. Loved every second of it. It went by way too fast, but it did spark a very interesting discussion. So with all that being said, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, all the other stuff. You're just a lurker, I appreciate you too. If you have any requests, whether it be more To Your Eternity or something totally different, the best place to send that in is always my social media. Link's going to be in the description below. And if you want these episodes early, subscribe to my Patreon. Link's going to be in the description for that as well. We also have the Patreon, or I already say Patreon. We also have the Discord if you want to join that, and talk more To Your Eternity or whatever we're watching on the show or on the channel. So with all that being said, let me get my off button ready. There it is. You all stay amazing, stay safe, and take care of yourselves.